Welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Georgia Calvin-Smith, and tonight the EU turns to Nigeria as it looks for alternative suppliers of oil and gas. The bloc's trying to strengthen its ties to Africa's top petroleum producer as Europe tries to wean itself off Russian resources. Also, dozens have died as extreme floods hit KwaZulu-Natal province in South Africa. Days of downpours have inundated roads and homes around Durban, forcing locals to flee collapsing buildings, washed away shipping containers and rising waters. And Ethiopian researchers are hoping that a local staple, colloquially known as the false banana, could offer a way to tackle food shortages. The nutritious, drought-resistant enset is eaten by tens of millions in the country, but is little known elsewhere. But first, the EU is courting Nigeria as it looks for ways to boost gas supplies threatened by the war in Ukraine. This week, the bloc sent European ambassadors to meet with leaders from Nigeria's energy sector. The country is one of the continent's biggest suppliers of liquefied natural gas and has offered to up supplies to Europe to plug any supply gap as the region weans itself off Russian energy. Samuel Okoye talks us through.
The meeting between the European Union diplomats and Nigerian energy officials is an indication that the EU is hungry for Nigeria's gas in the wake of the war in Ukraine. The EU ambassador said at least 40% of Nigeria's liquefied natural gas is being exported to Europe. Now they are calling for even more supplies. According to Samuela Isopi, the EU ambassador to Nigeria, the current geopolitical situation in Europe has made it necessary for the continent to strengthen its relations with Nigeria, especially in the supply of gas. As Europe's fourth largest supplier of gas, Nigeria is a very crucial partner at this time when Europe is desperate to make up for the shortfall of gas supplies from Russia in the wake of sanctions. Last month, Nigeria's Minister of State for Petroleum, Timipre Sylvia, told a delegation from the EU that Nigeria was ready to step up gas supplies to Europe. Nigeria has abundance of gas, and it has stepped up production in the wake of the war in Ukraine. Even then, it is unclear how much Nigeria can help Europe in the short term. Nigeria seems not to have the capacity to significantly boost its gas production within a short time. Nigeria will need a lot of investment in its energy sector to make up for the shortfall in Europe's gas supplies from Russia. Nigeria is looking up to Europe for this investment.
Sam Olukoya there for us. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has asked to address the African Union, hoping to drum up more support against Russia's invasion. So far, there has been a divided response from Africa to the war. Zelensky spoke with the African Union chairman and Senegalese president Macky Sall this week about the Ukrainians' struggle against the Russian incursion. This month, dozens of African nations, including Senegal, abstained from a UN General Assembly vote that suspended Russia from the UN Human Rights Council over the invasion. At least 45 people have been killed in South Africa in floods and mudslides after days of pounding rains. The flooding tore houses apart around Durban. Bridges and highways were submerged and power stations flooded. There are fears that the death toll might rise as search and rescue continues and more extreme rains are forecast.
Hundreds of toppled shipping containers were sticking out of a flooded highway after days of heavy rainfall caused massive floods in the South African city of Durban. Many truck drivers who had been transiting through the country's biggest port say they were almost trapped inside their vehicles as the water rose suddenly during the night.
At around 3 a.m., I felt the truck shaking, and I thought maybe somebody bumped it. But when I tried to open the curtain, I saw the water level was very high. I tried to start the truck, and after a few attempts, I managed to drive away.
All across the KwaZulu-Natal province, floods and landslides wreaked havoc and devastation on Tuesday. Dozens of people were killed, a death toll that's likely to rise as rescue operations get underway. Entire roads and highways were destroyed, and thousands of homes damaged, while several power stations were flooded, cutting off electricity in parts of the region. Hundreds of residents were also left stranded as they were unable to reach an overwhelmed emergency call center. Those who made it out say they've lost all their possessions.
I got nowhere to go now. I got no house, I got no nothing. The situation is very, very bad. I don't know where we're going to sleep now.
The region's disaster management agency urged people residing in low-lying areas to move to higher ground as more rainfall was expected in the coming days.
At least 30 people have been killed in 2 days of attacks in DR Congo's Ituri province. The local Red Cross believes that the Allied Democratic Forces, or ADF militia, are responsible for the weekend's bloodshed. The group is linked to the Islamic State and has terrorized local communities. Clément Bonero has the latest.
For the local Red Cross says the attacks took place in 2 villages around Komanda, some 75 kilometers south of the provincial capital, Bunia. Armed gunmen killed at least 9 people in Shari Moya on Sunday and 17 people in Mangusu on Monday. They also killed 4 near a bridge over the Ituri River. Civil society groups say the attacks were extremely brutal. Some of the victims were found tied up, while others had their throats slit. Homes were torched and property looted. The attackers are believed to be members of the Allied Democratic Forces, the ADF, a Ugandan militia which has been active in eastern Congo since the 90s and which is suspected of links to the Islamic State group. Fighting between the ADF and the Congolese army was continuing on Tuesday. The army spokesman telling me earlier that rebels have intensified their attacks as a result of being driven out of their positions. DR Congo declared a state of siege last year over the worsening bloodshed in Ituri and North Kivu. And Uganda sent 1,000 troops to Congo in December to undertake joint operations against the ADF. But despite promises of progress, these measures have so far failed to bring peace to the region.
Clément Bonero there for us. And finally, about 20 million people in Ethiopia regularly eat enset. It's also known as false banana and is a hardy, nutritious plant that for now is only cultivated in its domesticated form in Ethiopia. Researchers there have been exploring ways of upping its cultivation and use. As they say, it could help tackle rocketing food insecurity on the continent. Maria Gerth-Nicolescu has more.
Enset, or false banana, is the staple food in this village in southern Ethiopia. Its flesh is usually extracted by hand. The fruit is nutritious and versatile, but is relatively unknown internationally.
We use it for everything, animals and humans alike. Enset saves us from hunger. You can also extract the starch, used especially by pregnant women. The fibre is also used for ropes and building roofs for the houses.
Transforming enset takes a lot of physical labor, and the job is traditionally performed by women. Men concentrate on farming. The plant is extremely hardy and can be harvested all year long.
Cultivating enset isn't difficult compared to other crops. You only have to add compost from manure and household waste. We don't add any water. The plant keeps its humidity even during the dry season, so it's not necessary to water it.
Africa has seen droughts multiply over the decades. Researchers say enset's climate resistance could see it play an important part in the fight against hunger in the future. This biologist has been exploring the enset's potential, including looking at ways to reduce its fermentation time from several weeks to a few days.
We have been promoting enset as the next superfood. Most people, they try to pull enset out of the farming system because they think that it's always laborious. But nowadays we introduce a new type of modern processing tools as well as modern fermentation technology. So I think from our long years of experience, enset will be the ultimate solution for the global food crisis.
Adisu Fekadu wants to see a ramp-up of sales of enset-derived products and improve the fruit's visibility. He says that by 2060, enset could provide food for over 100 million people around the world.
Communities around the mouth of the Sabaki, one of Kenya's longest rivers, have been fighting back against the destruction of the mangroves that have cradled their villages for centuries. Years of unchecked exploitation have cleared large areas and endangered the rich ecosystem. But villagers are now volunteering to replant and revive their estuary.
Along the banks of the Sabaki River in southern part of Kenya, volunteers plant mangrove saplings. Local communities here are working to restore the ecosystem. One tree at a time, they're bringing the estuary back to life.
This area has changed. Back in the day, we used to have a big forest all over with wild animals like elephants and monkeys. This used to be an area where wild animals lived during the 1950s and 60s.
Years of logging depleted the healthy mangroves and wildlife. More than 80% of mangroves have already been lost along western parts of the Indian Ocean.
So the point at which we've got to now, globally, in Africa, in Kenya, or just looking at the Kenyan coast, is the population density is very high already, and the amount of resources that have already been extracted by fishing, by clearing vegetation, by cutting wood for charcoal or for construction and things like that, is we are already at an ecosystem or environmental deficit right now. So we can only benefit ourselves and nature by restoring ecosystems right now.
Mangroves are much more than mere shrubs in salty water. They can absorb 5 times more carbon than forests on land. They also protect land against coastal erosion. In recent years, conservation groups and local volunteers planted tens of thousands of mangroves.
The ability to bounce back and come back and colonize the areas they used to be in the past is quite encouraging.
The hope is to reclaim cleared land and boost the regrowth of the forest. It's still early, but it looks like the efforts are bearing fruit.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.
Faced with the Russian invasion, a spirit of resistance and unity has taken hold of Ukraine. Our reporters on the ground have been talking to civilians and soldiers, young conscripts, volunteer paramedics and doctors who operate or deliver babies underground as the bombs fall. Trapped by the war, the Ukrainian people tell stories of darkness and despair, but also of courage and hope. Watch reporters on France 24 and France24.com.